Well, we have a virgin on tonight's show.
Yeah.
LaTonya Hopson.
Oh,
Yes.
who can sing?
Yes, and there's some singing going on.
Hey,
Welcome,
LaTonya,
welcome.
first time with us.
Yeah.
We are happy to be your first time.
Yes.
No.
So honored.
Every one of you.
Oh,
Yes.
Oh, she's so gracious.
that's what she said.
That's what she said. But what an exciting night it is. We have all these beautiful people around the table and no Al Ferguson.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Amazing.
Did he not get the invite? Did he not? What?
Right, hear the
so
cheers in the studio. We have Lexi
holiday
Goza,
miracle.
right, and Jeff Oliverio and Dr. Julio Capo Jr. and our newbie, LaTonya Hopson.
Yay. And Jeff's hair.
And just hair. Yeah, Jeff's hair made it as well, thank God.
All right, ready.
We will now queer up breaking news. Honor 41's annual The 41 list includes a familiar South Florida face.
Honor 41 has announced the 6th edition of the 41 list, which celebrates 41 LGBTQ Latinx role models.
This year's 41 list includes a diverse group of distinguished professors, journalists, community leaders, actors, elected officials, activists, nonprofit leaders, artists, students, entrepreneurs, and more.
Alberto B. Menenzo, founder of Honor 41 and producer of the 41 list, said, quote, Honor 41 promotes awareness and positive images of the Latinx LGBTQ community. Celebrating this year's honorees and sharing their stories is an incredible personal honor, quote.
And here's the big moment. One honoree stands out to us here.
Drum
and that's
roll,
our,
please.
That's our very own Tony Lima.
Yay! Confetti!
You
The
guys are sweet.
CEO, I'm talking, CEO of SunServe and the anchor here at the Happening Out television network, who said, and I quote, representation matters, and I hope my story as an openly gay Latinx advocate with a strong passion for helping my communities and evening the playing field for us all can inspire the next generation of advocates to take us even further than my generation has. Nicely done, Tony.
That's a good quote. Huh?
It was
Really
beautiful.
good.
Congratulations,
Wow.
Tony.
Thanks,
Congratulations.
It's well deserved,
Yes,
and you
well-deserved.
have given a lot to our community. So
Really.
we're, I
It's
think
about
it was
time
very,
to get
very
recognized like that.
great to
Thank
see
you.
this.
I
Richly
appreciate
deserved.
that very much. I'm very honored because I've been very aware of this list pretty much since its inception. And Alberto Mendoza, the guy that runs Honor 41, is an amazing activist within his own right and takes the time year after year to interview more than 41 people to get to those 41, of course, but he captures everyone's unique coming out story and really shows the multifacets living and leading in the Latinx community who are also LGBTQ or queer. So I'm really excited. Thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congrats
Hey,
again.
nada.
Thank you. So welcome to Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news. It's 8 p.m. Tuesday, December 14th, 2021, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we are going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. I'm Faye. What? I mean, wait, what? No. This panel looks totally different tonight. This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens, you will see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you. We are part of the partnership between Happening Out Television Network and Hotspots Magazine. Hotspots is celebrating 36 years of the LGBTQ plus experience. We bring you the best of the LGBTQ plus news, entertainment, and support of our community.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Tony Lima. Let's welcome anchor Jeff Oliverio. He is a founding member and treasurer of the Hollywood LGBTQ Plus Council, a unique community civic organization designed to unite the LGBTQ plus community in Greater Hollywood. And this is especially important to me now because I live in Hollywood now. The council will be hosting the inaugural My Hollywood Pride. Good evening, Jeff.
Good evening. Yes, we're very excited to be hosting inaugural My Hollywood Pride on January 22nd, 2022. It's 12222. We're also having a great kickoff event this Thursday night from 6 to 9 p.m. in downtown Hollywood at Mickey Burns. It is our Fabulous or Ugly Sweater Party. So come out and join us 6 to 9 p.m. downtown Hollywood. Now let's welcome anchor Lexi Goza. Lexi is the chair of the Miami-Dade Gay and Lesbian Chamber's Women's Empowerment Council, board member of the Aqua Foundation for Women. She is also the former founder and president of P-Flag Melbourne and former president of Space Coast Pride. She owns a State Farm agency in downtown Miami, is certified as an LGBTQ plus business enterprise by the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. Good evening, Lexi.
Good evening, Jeff. Thank you for having me, and I'm so excited to be here. I am sad, though, that I'm going to miss the Hollywood kickoff party. As Jeff said, and I've said this over and over the last week, December needs 60 days.
Yeah.
There's so much going on. Next, let's welcome LaTonya Hopson, a Florida native and a diversity advocate. She is dedicated to building awareness of holistic wellness in the Black and Brown communities. LaTonya provides faith-based services for mental health, physical fitness, and emotional therapy through alternative methods. LaTonya is the owner and operator of Top Notch Sports and Fitness. TNSNF educates and enlightens others to live a holistically spiritual, balanced lifestyle. LaTonya is looking forward to sharing her passion as a holistic spiritual counselor to engage others in diverse topics and empower individuals to walk their purpose authentically. I love that line. Such a great mission. LaTonya also is on the board of directors for Afro Pride. Good evening, LaTonya.
Good evening, everyone. So glad to be here and join my new team.
Yes.
Looking forward to our growth for the new year 2022.
Yes.
All right, let's welcome anchor Dr. Julio Capo Jr. He is a history professor and the director of Wolfson Public Humanitarians Lab at Florida University. And I would like to say that he is the deputy director, actually. So let me correct myself, okay? He specializes in the history of race relations and immigration in the United States, as well as LGBTQ plus studies. He is an author of the book, Welcome to Fairyland, Queer Miami Before 1940, and created a new exhibition called Messages from a Pandemic, AIDS Graphic Communication. Good evening, Julio.
Hi, new friend. This is LaTonya's first, and we're so lucky to be here with you.
Thanks
you
for
for
making
joining
me so
us.
comfortable.
Oh, you're making us comfortable. And if you can check out that exhibition, it features over 20 countries, posters of AIDS posters from around the world. I can speak sometimes.
Yes.
Not
yes.
today, but sometimes I can. It's a collaboration with the Wilsonian Museum and the Wilsonian Public Humanities Lab. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Tuesday, December 14th.
We're going to start off by queering up religion. Massachusetts Church offers a new shot at life for LGBTQ plus asylum seekers. A Massachusetts church group that's uniquely focused on support for immigrants fleeing their countries due to their sexual orientation has opened a new permanent home for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender asylum seekers. The LGBT Asylum Task Force, a ministry of Hadwin Park Congregational Church in Worcester, raised more than $500,000 to purchase and renovate a dilapidated 3-story former group home on the city's well-heeled west side. The task force covers rent and provides a $500 monthly stipend for immigrants, at least until they can receive work authorization, a process that can take around 2 years, Al Green, the task force director, said. The group also connects asylum seekers with immigration lawyers, sets them up with bank accounts and health insurance, and helps prepare them for entering the workforce. Green said, quote, "We found that giving folks stability has helped them better prepare for their asylum cases. They know they're in a safe place until they can get on their feet," end quote. Green is from Jamaica and participated in the program.
Man, I just think that this is so necessary, right? I mean, think about how much stress you're under in that situation when you're interviewing and you're trying to get your citizenship, and to have to worry about where you're going to sleep at night and whether or not you have food on the table, right? And this helps them not have to go through that and just be ready and more successful in their endeavor. So I love it.
Yeah, I think there's been so much pushback against immigration, especially under the previous administration, that it's just an important reminder that we are a country of asylum seekers. That's how we were founded, and this is a wonderful story that supports the LGBTQ plus community. So I really like this.
I love the story so much, and I just have, as a complete coincidence, Al Green is a dear friend. He's one of my closest friends. I used to teach at UMass Amherst, so I worked a lot with local Massachusetts organizations and folks. And Al Green is now the executive director, he's been for a while, of the LGBT Asylum Task Force, and the work that they do there is incredible. I mean, it's often with very limited resources. They not only provide housing, they provide food, they provide sometimes court assistance. Like, as people are navigating really difficult processes to gain asylum status in the United States, especially in this very difficult time under the Trump administration, it was nearly impossible to even get a court hearing with so much red tape. It was the work that they do there. If you're going to support them, I really, really encourage you to do so. And lastly, I feel like one of the things that's so clear about this story is that immigration issues have always been LGBTQ issues, even if they're often not framed that way. It's so important that we understand all forms of liberation as necessary to doing the work that we do.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Very true. During this time, during the pandemic and everything that we're facing, encouragement and empowerment through work, reformation in the community is always needed.
Absolutely.
I agree with you all.
Snaps.
We need a version of that here in South Florida.
Right.
Being an area where there are so many immigrants seeking asylum in one way, shape, or form, I wonder why this hasn't been on our radar. You know, I feel like we should all band together and develop our own task force of sorts and get some, maybe you should lead it, Julio. Maybe this is your next position in life, is to help make this thing. But I mean, in all seriousness, and I am being super serious, think about it. I think we need this kind of program here in South Florida, a program that is developed in a language, a program that is focused on the different nationalities that we see represented coming to South Florida and really trying to help these people.
There's very few resources like this in the country. The one based out of Worcester is one of the few. Actually, I could only name two. And like this is, and you're right, South Florida needs more resources, along with, let's say, immigration equality based out of New York. Like, all these spaces are doing important work, but they're under-resourced, and we need more of them.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
Right.
So Tony,
if anyone,
the idea, so
if anyone wants to fund this work, as Lexi, my sister, is saying, let's make it happen.
Let's make it
Faye is going to hate that I just called you my sister, but she's my sister.
Jealousy, jealousy.
Now let's queer up the world. Hungary's anti-LGBT law may breach international rights standards. A panel of experts of the Council of Europe human rights body has assessed that recent amendments to Hungarian legislation related to sex education programs in schools and the presentation of sexual content in the media are discriminatory and violate international human rights standards. The government of right-wing Prime Minister Viktor Orban passed the changes in June, drawing sharp criticism from the European Commission and the members of the LGBT community who say they stigmatize sexual minorities and stifle discourse on sexual orientation. In an opinion published on December 14th, the constitutional law experts of the Venice Commission concluded that the amendments fail to comply with the positive obligation of Hungary to ensure that the educational system provides children with objective and non-biased information on gender identity and sexual orientation. These stories are come up all the time here, just about the sometimes atrocities or things that happen against our community globally. And it's a reminder to people that live here, where we have so much freedom and so many rights, that we do the things that we do here so that we can spread that across the globe. And that's very important because, you know, there are children and people that are prosecuted every day for just being who they are.
I agree with that 100%, Jeff. I think that sometimes we forget, right, how good we have it, and we forget to be grateful for that. So that's a good point. Yeah.
I think one of the interesting aspects of a story like this is that we do have a lot of work happening here domestically in the United States focused on all of our communities. But there are countries around the world, and we often talk about them here on this show, that don't have any kind of support. You know, so now that I'm in the business of asking people to create agencies, and I'm happy to serve on a board or help fund any of this work, like, we should help to try to eradicate the issues that are happening in other parts of the world with more intention, right? In the end, it always bleeds back to us in one way, shape, or form. So it's important to be very cognizant of what's going on.
Very true. Next, let's queer up entertainment. Despite bans on LGBTQ+ content, new TV drama brings gay characters to the screen. A new Chinese television drama has received positive reviews from audiences for its subtle references to same-sex relationships and representations of the LGBT community on the small screen, despite such portrayals being prohibited. Titled Delicious Romance, the series focuses on the personal and professional lives of 3 women and joins a growing list of shows to recently garner popularity for their realistic portrayal of female-centric roles. Directed by Taiwan's Leslie Chen and Su Chao Jen, the 20-episode drama premiered on streaming site Tencent Video last month. In one episode, a male character, surnamed Huang, is seen discussing his sham marriage with a female protagonist, highlighting the societal pressures individuals feel to conform to marriage and childbirth. While some Chinese gay men and lesbian women help one another by tying the knot, many others hide their sexual orientation and end up with straight partners.
What do they mean by subtle depictions?
Yeah. So I mean, under the communist government, right? Like, I'm wondering what kinds of what are the? There's kind of a common theme in today's Anala stories. But one of the things that really strikes me is how the incredible content that is coming out of Asia that we're seeing in streaming services. Like, I'm thinking of Netflix, the Korean Squid Games, which I thought was really queer in a lot of ways, and the Japanese Alice in Borderland. There's all these really interesting stories that are coming out of Asia, and I wonder if how this is going to play out in this kind of space, and how subtle is. Like, maybe these are powerful messages that can resonate with people beyond subtle to us, but maybe not subtle in China or whatever, right?
Right, and I think too, it reminds us how important it is for us to see ourselves in media, right?
Yeah.
So I also felt very pressured as a young adult to get married and have children, get married heterosexually and have children. And and that's what I did, right? And I didn't actually know that I could be with another woman until I was 26 years old, right? And so had I seen some subtle references to people like me, then maybe my situation would have been different and I would have come out sooner. So I applaud this.
And I think, the path to progress happens a lot of times in entertainment, even in our own country. The media does obviously change views. Yeah. I don't know that it'll change communist views that easily. Right. However, and I'm happy to see that they're trying to push the envelope and show this representation in media.
Yes.
And this pushing the envelope, as you say, is an act of activism. It's an act of defiance,
It's radical.
which until you said it is radical. Until you said it, I didn't think about it that way. Like, these subtleties are helping inform a whole new generation.
It gives a language to defiance, right? Like, it creates a framework in which people can really start pushing back, right? We saw that in Cuba, certainly. Yeah.
I'm glad that you said that, because we offline had this conversation before, how this exact same thing happens among communities of color, and I said, well, this runs preeminent with Latinos, right?
It's a black thing.
Yeah.
It's a white thing.
It's a white thing.
Everyone is dealing with that. Yes. And so I think it's about seeing something consistent in media as representation, for all type of inclusion and diversity does help us.
So important.
But we've all said something. It helped us be who we are now. Even though it may have taken a while, we wouldn't be as powerful and loving. So now the generation behind us can just be more free to be themselves, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
I got goosebumps.
It was needed.
Yes.
Like, the power and truth was needed so that the new generation can come and just really be free to be themselves.
Yes.
Politically, in your religious institution, in your education, in your family, and be proud and be happy.
Yes.
Absolutely.
More of that.
I hope they're grateful. I just hope they're grateful.
Queer up the world. police assaults of the LGBTQ plus activists becoming a pattern in Tunisia. A prominent LGBTQ activist in Tunisia has reported that two men, one dressed in police uniform, threw him to the ground, beat and kicked him during an assault. They said was punishment for his insulting attempts to file complaints against police officers for previous mistreatment. Badar Beho, president of the Tunisian Association for Justice and Equality, or Danjman, said, "That was not the first time that I had been attacked by a policeman, but I was really surprised. The attack was horrifying. They aimed for my head. At a moment, they stood on my neck. This was very symbolic for me, as if they wanted to reduce me to silence." Police violence is among the major challenges that the LGBTQ people experience in Tunisia. Observers say officers who can dispense beatings with impunity are becoming increasingly brazen. Homosexual activity in the North African country remains a criminal offense punishable by up to 3 years in prison. Human Rights Watch researcher Rasha Yunenis says that while police attacks have been ongoing, recent attacks show that they are becoming more public and unabashed in their mistreatment of the LGBTQ Tunisian, a climate of criminalization. Police says, and comment ends.
Yeah, I mean, the world is a scary place. We're finding out tonight, but you know, there was a story we did a while ago about when we were talking about the U.S. leaving Afghanistan and hearing about again the punishment and things that were going to go on there, and this just reiterates that again. The reason that we have to be so strong here and kind of spread the message is that there are lots of people out there that are just being punished every single day.
There's such a, I don't know if but there's such a common thread to all these stories already. That is, we kind of see all these different forms of homophobia at the intersection of racism and classism that are existing in a number of different countries, right? But one of the kind of key one of the takeaways for this is that this is police brutality. This is state violence against LGBTQ folks, right? And we have so much to learn in the United States against police brutality that's targeting Black and brown folks. Like, that is, how do we, it's very easy for us to imagine that things need to get better elsewhere when we see so many problems within, the United States itself and police brutality. And it's a lot to take in as you're kind of seeing all these stories connect.
Right. And I think too, we've talked about this on the show before as well, as our communities become more visible, that's when there's more pushback, right? And more violence. And I think it's going to encourage more people to stand up against it, right? And it's an ongoing battle, and we've just got to be strong and be authentic.
Authentic, yes, against any type of social injustice. That's right. That's the key issue, is social injustice is what we're all saying.
Right.
You cannot really sway one towards the other. And I think that's what we're seeing the problem. If you favor one and then we don't highlight another issue, it's just going to continue to grow.
That's
and that's really where we are as a nation, not just in America, but as a nation, like everywhere.
Yeah. Solidarity is what we have to understand ourselves as interconnected. Because we are.
Yeah.
And we've all said something sort of very similar, but the world is watching us, right? So I wonder how much of this brazen activity by these cops is directly informed by what they're seeing happening here. Right. Well, if the Americans are doing it, we should beat up people of color. We should beat up LGBT folks, right? So we have a responsibility as Americans, right? And all politics is local, as we also talk about on the show and on all of our shows, actually. So it's important for us to take the reins here of what's happening and making sure that the images that are shown coming from America as much as possible are not these degrading, these prejudiced, these hateful images that lead to this kind of modeling by other countries.
That's right. Great point.
All right, let's queer up gay culture. A study shows that J.K. Rowling's TERF tweets are causing damage to the LGBTQ plus community as she does it again. Shame on you, J.K. Rowling. Though the Harry Potter author has been somewhat shunned by fans of the franchise, her frequent spewing of anti-trans rhetoric and trans-exclusionary radical feminism, TERF, still reaches a whopping 13.9 million followers. Her reach is enormous. And this reach has an impact, of course. According to a report from the European Association for LGBT plus rights, she has directly contributed to the downfall of the United Kingdom's equality ranking. The group ranks all of the countries in the region based on their equality climate, taking everything into account, like the laws that are being passed supporting LGBT plus rights and human rights, general social stigmas, or even the loudest voices, like J.K. Rowling, in the country who support or oppose these changes. This, of course, is where Rowling comes in. Despite the damning report, Rowling has not changed her tune or, at the very least, considered her impact. On December 12th, just a few days ago, Rowling made a tweet and linked an article from a Scottish publication that talked about how Scotland police would allow rape suspects to identify themselves as women, regardless of their genitalia. Her tweets read, quote, "War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. The penis individual who raped you is a woman," end quote, referencing George Orwell's 1984. Sit down, J.K. Rowling. Goodness.
I know. I can't believe, like, how do you not learn from the first time you got canceled?
Yeah.
What the heck? You know, my son was a huge fan of her books. And like to the point where I can remember us being on a road trip and he finished the last book and he's in the back seat. Now this is a 13-year-old boy child, and he is bawling, right? The books impacted him that much. And it's just so disappointing to me to see, especially with all of her followers still to this day, that she continues to just spew this hateful speech.
She has such a diverse audience as well.
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
Yeah.
She speaks to so many marginalized groups, and yet she's so
Supportive.
yeah. I mean, I don't know how she, you know, and you can't separate the art from the artist. Like,
Right.
if we can't, you know, like Roald Dahl was, you know, a rampant anti-Semite. Like, I mean, you can't separate the works that he did to, you know, this is now part of her legacy, and you take her to task.
Yes.
You know?
The medium is the message.
The medium is the message.
Right, and that's one of the most important things here. And we have to note that Fantastic Beasts 3 is about to come out, so she's going to make millions and millions and millions more, and be able to impress upon so many more followers, like all of this hate. And it's incredible to me how this woman doesn't see that people that are reading her books or then seeing the movies inspired by her books are also LGBTQ people, right? So I don't understand how she doesn't see that she's an author for us all, not for some people, for all of us. So J.K. Rowling, you have a responsibility. Hopefully now that soon will be on Roku, you're watching this and we can crap all over you in some way, shape, or form. What I would say is to all of the people that we know that are watching the show, don't go see Fantastic Beasts.
No.
Don't buy any of her books. Like, don't patron any of the stuff that someone like this puts out.
Exactly.
Cancel, exactly.
This is our queer headlines for today. So let's catch up on the LGBTQ plus news surrounding COVID-19 with our special segment called Quarantine Quickies.
Queer News Tonight has reported on coronavirus on every news broadcast since January 6, 2020. Tonight we report that as of today, more than 3,571,000 LGBTQ plus Americans have contracted COVID-19.
Queer News Tonight remembers the more than 57,000 LGBTQ plus Americans who died from coronavirus.
But the news is improving because as of today, more than 485 million vaccination doses have been administered in the U.S. Next up, welcome to Queer News Tonight's Q&A on LGBTQ plus health and pandemic. Since February 2020, this segment has been unique in America, answering your LGBTQ plus community questions about our unique health needs. We are proud to have Queer News Tonight health anchor, Dr. Howard Grossman.
He is an American pioneer in HIV/AIDS medical treatment and was the executive director of the American Academy of HIV Medicine. He is a nationally recognized medical expert and proud member of our LGBTQ plus community.
Well, good evening, Dr. Grossman. How are you doing in Chicago?
Hey, Tony, how are you? Welcome to Howard Brown.
Very well, thank you. Before we move into viewer questions, what are your thoughts over this week's health news for our community?
Hold on, lost your phone for a second.
Hear 'em.
Can't hear him.
I see you. You can't hear me. Can you hear me now?
A little bit more. We are having technical difficulties, as we said at the top of the show. The show is live.
Yes. Whatever happens,
How is that?
I can hear him.
Much better.
Is that any better?
Yes.
Okay. So, the big news again this week is the Omicron variant. And, the fact that it is spreading quite widely. And I know you have a question about that tonight. I think the news that we've heard, certainly I know a friend of mine just told me they had the first death from Omicron in the UK in the last couple of days. What we're hearing is that this virus is at least twice as infectious as Delta, but probably less threatening and making people less sick. So I think we will see breakthrough infections. We're certainly seeing a rise of infections across the country. I know here in Illinois, our numbers have gone up significantly, and I know in Florida that's true as well, even though the state tends to underreport it in Florida. And the state is, apparently this, according to the Palm Beach Post the other day, the state is tracking the variants, but not reporting it except to the lawyers from the various press organizations that are forcing them to report it.
Not surprising.
So, welcome to DeSantistan, as Joy Reid calls it. So that I think that's been some of the big news. So the other news that I think we heard this week that's good in the last couple of days is that Pfizer has reported that people who've gotten the booster seem to be doing well in fighting this new variant. And again, 99% of the cases that are showing up at hospitals and new infections are Delta and not Omicron.
Thank you for that, Dr. Grossman. Let's jump right into tonight's questions.
Good evening, Dr. Grossman. What members of the LGBT community can do to help with their mental health over the holidays?
Well, I think the holidays are often a stressful time for everybody, not just LGBTQ people. But certainly, I think for many of us, we don't have traditional families necessarily. We don't have traditional families that we can depend on. We may be forced to go back into situations where we're in the closet or where we're with family members who don't accept us. I think one thing we can do on a personal level is remember that we don't pick our families. We pick our friends, we have our chosen family, but our families can push our buttons very easily. So I think when we hear our families say certain things, we need to stop and think, how would I feel if a stranger said that to me? I'd probably let it roll right off my back. And I think, but with our families, they can push those buttons all the time. And again, you don't choose them and you don't necessarily choose your feelings towards them. So many of us love our families despite their right-wing politics and their, maybe not understanding our gender identity or our sexuality. And you know what? We have to sometimes just let it go. We don't have to change them. That's the mistake we all make. So I think that makes family things better. And I think the other thing is that we need to support each other in this time. It's important if you have single friends who are on their own to reach out and try to draw people in. And people also need to take advantage of the resources that are available, whether it's places like SunServe or Compass in South Florida, or Howard Brown, or the Gay and Lesbian Center on Halstead here in Chicago. So many places have places that are welcoming to people during this season.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Dr. Grossman. I'm going to remember and have your voice in my head when I'm sitting around that table with my entire family wondering why I'm sitting there exactly. So thanks for that.
Remember, Tony, you don't have to turn them into people you would pick as friends. That's not who they are. They're your family.
Very good point. Thanks for that, Dr. Grossman.
There's a lot of really good advice there. Dr. Grossman, before I ask you my question, which is about the variant, I just have to say, nicely done with the floral bow tie.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I try to wear a different one every day just to shake them up around here.
All right, so a Central Florida city found that Omicron in their sewer water. So it's been detected there, even with no confirmed cases in the area. So you touch upon this a little bit, but how widespread do you think this variant is?
I think at this point, I think we're realizing that it's quite widespread. So as of the 10th of December, it was reported in 23 states. It's expected that in the next 2 weeks, it will be reported in every state. So it's already here. It's already everywhere. But again, I think people need to focus on the fact that it's Delta that's causing almost all the illness that's going on. And as people gather for the holidays, as they're traveling more, the airlines are expecting pre-pandemic levels of travel for the holidays. People need to be careful. They need to mask up. They need to, keep doing the kind of precautions that have kept them safe all this time. And really think about who they're associating with, who they're with, because it is really everywhere already.
So would you be recommending, Dr. Grossman, just in our everyday lives, like if I am going to the grocery store, I've gotten personally very relaxed when it comes to wearing my mask, especially when I'm going shopping or whatever the case may be. So should we be wearing our masks again? And I'm triple vaccinated.
Yeah, Tony, I got pretty relaxed with that too when I was living in Florida. But since I've been in Chicago, where there is a mask mandate, I've been wearing it. And you know what? I think it makes sense. If you're in a grocery store, you really don't know the status of the people around you. And clearly we're seeing breakthrough infections. So I think that that's important. I've been to the movies a few times lately, and the movie theaters are basically empty. I mean, there's so few people in them. And truthfully, in many places, you need to have a vaccine card to get into a movie theater. If you're sitting in a room with 6 people in a huge theater who are all vaccinated, I think if you take your mask off at some point during the movie, it's probably not a big deal. But in a more crowded situation, or a situation where we don't know the status, I think the mask is definitely makes sense. And certainly, that's what we're seeing them doing in Europe, and much of Europe. Indoors, you wear a mask. Outdoors, it's not a big deal, especially if you're vaccinated. Unfortunately, most places in New York, you can't walk into a restaurant without a vaccine card. You can't go to a movie theater. You can't go to the theater on Broadway without being vaccinated. And pretty soon, it will require triple vaccination. So I think those are places where maybe people can relax a little bit, but the mask certainly does, offer more protection.
Thank you, Dr. Grossman.
For sure. Good evening, Dr. Grossman.
And we don't want people to freak out. I'm sorry, Lexi. We don't want people to freak out. I think it's just basic precautions, and, in most cases it'll be okay, but the more you can do it consistently, the safer you are.
Absolutely.
For sure. Good evening, Dr. Grossman. I hope you're staying warm up there in the cold north of Chicago. That's crazy.
It's going to be 65 degrees here tomorrow.
Ooh, it's a
Shorts
heat
weather.
Global warming.
Right. So we briefly touched on mental health issues when we're around our families during this time. And with this variant, what we really want to know is, after this 2-year delay in celebrating holidays the way that we used to, how do you feel about the variant? Is it now safe to be with our friends and family this holiday season, even with this new variant?
Well, truthfully, I think it depends on your vaccination status. And, I went home for Thanksgiving and to New Jersey, and we had 40 people for Thanksgiving. Everybody was triple vaccinated. And we all took a COVID test before we went. My cousin insisted before we came, we do COVID tests. So everybody had done it, and we were fine. We didn't wear masks with each other. We were hugging and kissing and everything else. And truthfully, I think given those guidelines, we were very safe. I think in families where people have not been, I know a friend of mine here, for example, her daughter has some autoimmune diseases and has decided that she's not getting vaccinated. She's not being invited to the family Christmas in Atlanta. And that's okay with her. She's chosen to go this way. But so I think people really kind of need to make their decisions. But I think if you're in a mixed group of people, you have to be more careful.
I wanted to add on that, Dr. Grossman. This is Jeff Oliverio. Do you think the testing, which I find we don't talk enough about, that testing before an event or having family, I have a family member and we have a 2-year-old nephew in my family, so obviously he can't be vaccinated. Do you recommend people just going getting the over-the-counter, vaccine test or COVID test before they go into a setting where they're going to be around their friends and family, even if they've been vaccinated, because they can still be a carrier?
Well, Jeff, for years with HIV and with other things, we've talked about harm reduction. You can't eliminate harm completely, but you can reduce your risk. And all of these things help to reduce risk. So I think doing those tests the day of or the day before you actually are going to that party does add that extra layer of protection. I think people can always wear masks if they feel, less comfortable. The 2-year-old kind of depends on where the 2-year-old, if the 2-year-old's in preschool and exposed to a lot of people, that's a different story than if a 2-year-old is at home all the time with mom or dad and not being exposed to things. So you really kind of have to play that by ear. And again, this virus is going to be around a long time, and there will be other viruses. You can't eliminate your risk. Life is not a risk-free venture. You can only, wear a seatbelt, put on a bike helmet. Doesn't protect you from everything, but it sure helps.
Good advice. Thank you.
We are so lucky to have you, Dr. Grossman. Thank you for being with us week after week after week, answering our questions. That is
I'm lucky to have you all.
Thank you. That is this evening's Queer News Tonight Q&A on LGBTQ plus health and pandemic. We are here every Tuesday, as I just said, with Dr. Howard Grossman to answer your questions. Dr. Grossman is joining us from the prestigious Howard Brown Medical Center in Chicago, the largest LGBTQ plus health resource in the Midwest. Thank you again, Dr. Grossman. We'll see you next week.
Have a great holiday.
You too.
You too.
And LaTonya, it goes to you.
All right. This is our pandemic news for tonight. Next, we report on our partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We are broadcasting from our preeminent set here at Sunshine in supporting that partnership. Happening Out Television Network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ plus religious live broadcast in the world, as more than 30,000 watch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Watch this.
I'm Scott Galvin, Executive Director of Safe Schools South Florida, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
We finished tonight's queer news headlines with what we call LGBTQ plus flash news. LGBTQ plus flash news. Amazon's Wheel of Time brings on epic queer romance. One of television's most epic fantasy series is now centered on a queer woman. In the latest episode of The Wheel of Time, the Amazon Prime Video adaptation of Robert Jordan's groundbreaking fantasy books, the lead character, Moraine, or Rosamund Pike, is revealed to be in a relationship with another woman. And not just any woman either. She's in a relationship with Sion Sophie Okonedo, the Amerlin Seat, who is WOT's equivalent to the Pope. Moraine is one of the Aes Sedai, a sorceress or priestess, who falls under her jurisdiction, making their love the most dangerous office romance one could imagine. After the episode aired on Friday, Pike said, quote, "It's surprising, it's dangerous. It just adds so many layers to Moraine's character, and you realize what the stakes are for her," end quote. This means that WOT has made herstory. TV heirs apparent to Game of Thrones, a sprawling fantasy epic, stars a queer woman in an interracial relationship who is setting out to save the world. Moraine leads a group of young people, one of whom may be the dragon reborn savior figure, in defeating the forces of darkness. Watch this.
Am I forgiven, Mother? I hate it when you call me that. So much for the Amelin seat, remaining neutral, without favourites. No life. No love of one's own. Nothing but the seat. When have we ever followed the rules? These are new. A year, maybe 2. You've been gone such a long time. On your knees.
I am here for it, and I want to see more.
Me too.
That's all I have to say. I'm sweating. I'm sweating after that scene.
I need to say so much more. Oh my goodness. So please, I need more of this in my life, first and foremost. Secondly, this is not going to end well. I had an office romance, and it's not a good idea. Just stop, guys.
Did you ever say that? Were you like, on your knees?
Oh,
Maybe. Yes.
When you said you didn't know what to say, I thought maybe you were clamming up.
Yeah. No.
Wow.
No.
Next.
I have been wanting to watch Wheel of Time for a while, and now I'm definitely on board. Yeah.
dream come true.
Yeah.
You know, watching it for all the beautiful ladies.
Yeah.
You know.
But you know, you're sitting at a table with a bunch of gay men, and we were living for it too.
You're right.
I support. I should not exclude.
Live for it.
Al's
Living.
probably really glad he wasn't here for that.
But there's
Yes.
more, like, I think, male TV shows for gay
So
men
much
than for
more.
women. So
So
we're just
much
having
more.
our moment.
Listen,
So
I'm having the
much
moment with you.
Okay.
Yes.
On your knees. Go on, Jeff.
LGBTQ plus flash news. Carl Nassib creates rainbow cleats to support the Trevor Project. Las Vegas Raiders defensive end Carl Nassib, who became the first openly gay active NFL player in June, helped design custom rainbow cleats to raise awareness and money for the LGBTQ community. In participation with the NFL's My Cause, My Cleats fundraiser, Nassib created the Rainbow Cleats this season to spotlight the LGBTQ youth suicide prevention and crisis intervention organization, the Trevor Project. A great organization. As part of the campaign, players can custom design their own cleats to raise awareness for the nonprofit organizations of their choice. Players then auction off the cleats to raise money for the groups. Sid Ziegler, LGBTQ advocate and co-founder of the LGBTQ sports site Outsports.com, celebrated Nassib's support, conceding that visible support for the LGBTQ community is a rarity among NFL players. Ziegler said, quote, I have been for a couple of years pointing to the fact that no NFL players ever choose LGBTQ causes, and it's a real source of disappointment. People talk about the importance of allies, and I say all the time that we can't wait for allies to show up, that LGBTQ people have to push for our own visibility and our own equality. Amen. Before this year, Miami Dolphins receiver Preston Williams was the only NFL player out of hundreds to highlight the LGBTQ causes. Williams dedicated his cleats in 2019 to the Miami-based LGBTQ advocacy group Pride lines, one of my favorites. I love this story. The Trevor Project and their relationship with the NFL. My dad is an NFL fan, and so he called me and one day or texted me and said, "Did you ever hear of the Trevor Project?" And I said, "Yes, Dad." But it just shows that showing these things in mainstream sports and other things, it brings awareness. And it was great to see that my dad knew about the Trevor Project. So it snaps to the NFL for having this program, and representation, as we say here, matters.
It does.
100%. I love this story too, and this is 100% true. Bought a new pair of cleats just last night, and I wish that you should listen to all of this. There's so many LGBTQ amateur leagues who would purchase this if they were not metal cleats, because they're not allowed in these things. So make sure you provide them so that we can support these. I would buy them in a heartbeat.
Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You can say whatever you want or not. That's okay.
Sports, inclusion, love.
Love.
I'm here for it.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So what I want to say is, and I know it's only supposed to be one sentence, but I have to gush over the end part of the story. William specifically pushing his cleats, right, super Cuban, pushing his cleats over to Pride lines, and I know that a lot of it had to do with the Miami Dolphins and their overt support of our community.
Yeah.
They support our community with money, pushing forward to help all of our organizations with our programming. And the year before Williams did this, in 2018, I received the NFL Leadership Award from the Miami Dolphins on the field before a game, the Raiders game, which was a huge deal. Yeah. Jeff was there with me, actually.
My son got to go on the field, so thank you, Tony Lima, for the invite.
Okay. No, it was a lot of fun.
About that.
Does he? The great thing is that they were supporting an openly LGBT person
a big deal.
On the field, right? So the Miami Dolphins also deserve a major kudos, and I'm so glad and so happy that they're in our backyard.
Yeah, 100%. I think all of us need to renew our support of the Trevor Project. This is a really great reminder of that. I just filmed an It Gets Better video through State Farm. They're doing a corporate partnership, and they're getting a bunch of gay employees and gay agents to all do the videos. And I think there is no better youth organization out there in terms of on the national scale, right?
Great.
Absolutely. And Lexi, we go to you.
Yes. LGBTQ plus flash news, Nancy Reagan. This one's tough for me to swallow.
Not for her.
Throat goat. Why the AIDS-ignoring throatist is trending. Hundreds of tweets about Nancy Reagan flooded the internet this weekend to the confusion of many, including me. We're here to tell you why. It all started when a Twitter account tweeted side-by-side pics of Madonna and Nancy Reagan. Quote, "This is Madonna at 63. This is Nancy Reagan at 64. Trashy living versus classic living," end quote, they wrote. The original tweet was ratioed, which I just learned what that means, by comedian and writer Zach Heltzel, who tweeted an article detailing journalist Kitty Kelly's biography of Nancy Reagan. The excerpt claimed that Nancy was, quote, "renowned in Hollywood for performing oral sex," end quote, before marrying Ronald Reagan. Heltzel then said in a tweet, quote, "For the record, there is nothing wrong with Nancy Reagan being promiscuous in her youth, just like there is nothing wrong with Madonna being provocative in her 60s. If you really want to find ways in which these two women are different, look at how they responded to AIDS," end quote.
Mic drop. Boom.
Yes, what a sound bite. How powerful is that message that we need to be focusing on that instead of their sex lives, right?
I mean, the fact that we're comparing Nancy Reagan to Madonna is just funny to begin with. However, the biggest part of this too is the age discrimination of what age is it not appropriate to be sexy? Because I hope when I'm 63 that I'm doing half of what Madonna's doing. Because she is an icon, and Nancy Reagan is not here anymore. So, and that's all I'll say. That's all I'll say about the dead.
Yeah.
You know, stop the sexism, stop the slut shaming, stop the ageism, and I mean, there is no comparison between Nancy Reagan's, non-action during HIV/AIDS in the early years of HIV/AIDS and Madonna's. I mean, there's no comparison. This is the mic drop is real.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The mic dropped, and I'll pick it up briefly.
Yeah.
Live your truth and have orgasms.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's it.
More,
Daily.
You know,
more.
Yes.
of
That's what we're
those.
gonna do.
Yeah.
What can I even say after that?
No.
Like,
More
that's not work.
orgasms.
Like more orgasms, yes.
Yes.
That's what
Yes.
we're gonna do.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's you, LaTonya.
All right, LGBTQ plus flash news. Zendaya wants to bring Black queer love to the big screen.
Zendaya.
Thank
Zendaya.
you.
Zendaya.
Is-
We're all-
Zendaya.
We are
Potato,
going to get it
potato.
correct.
Yes.
Zendaya, excuse me. Many in the LGBTQ plus community love Zendaya. From her start on the Disney show Casey, Undercover, her high-flying romance in The Greatest Showman, and her role as Spider-Man's love interest, MJ, she brings us strength, sweetness, and glamour. In a recent discussion with Interview, Zendaya sat down with her Euphoria co-star Coleman Domingo to discuss what might be up next in the future of her career, saying, and quote, "I just want to do the things that make me happy and bring me joy and fulfill me as an artist, as a person. The idea of trying to direct in the future excites me. The thing most she wants to do is direct a love story about two Black girls. In her interview, she said, and quote, "I don't want it to be rooted in anything other than just a story about two people falling in love, and that's it." Quote, "Something simple and beautiful that leaves you happy and wanting to fall in love with yourself." She also added, "To see all the different emotional colors of what it means to be a young Black girl. I would like to see that because I don't think I've seen many depictions of it." That's very true. And to see that now, that representation, like we were saying, through many stories, will just encourage people to be honest. And you know what? There'll be more pure relationships, less narcissism and manipulation, when people can live their truth honestly. And then mental health, you know, is something that you can't stem away from when living your truth as well. So I think that we'll just be healthier as people and a community.
Agreed. I love that.
I'm just excited that young stars like Zendaya are saying things like this because, like we talk about always, representation matters. And this new generation of young people is extremely inclusive. And we need them. We need them to share all of this on their platforms to inspire others so that we'll be in a better place when we're in our 60s. Like we were talking about earlier. When you said that earlier about being in our 60s, I was like, that's just 20 years away. Like,
20.
Oh.
this is why you don't have your friends on the show with you.
That's right. They will call you out when you try to lie about your age. So I love this for her. I love what she was saying about, you know, she really wants to do the things that bring her joy and make her happy. And I am there for it 100%. And the representation, yes, please, more of that.
I think whatever Zendaya wants to do, she will be a huge success. She is a powerhouse. If you're not a fan or haven't watched any of her performances, she is amazing. So
she is such a force. I love her, and yes, please be in the director's seat. We can't wait. And as we saw with, is it Wheel of Time? Is that the series? I think that's right. The lacking of women representation, queer women, and that's especially true for queer women of color. This is a necessary thing to see more of, as we all said.
Agree.
All right. LGBTQ plus flash news. EU's highest court recognizes same-sex couples and their children. The European Union's highest court on Tuesday issued a landmark ruling that paves the way for the legal recognition of same-sex couples and their children throughout the EU. The European Court of Justice issued the ruling in the case of a same-sex couple who was unable to receive a Bulgarian birth certificate for their daughter who was born in Spain. One of the child's parents was born in Bulgaria, and the other was born in Gibraltar. Spain denied the child citizenship because her parents were not Spanish citizens. The UK also denied the child British citizenship because the British Nationality Act of 1981 did not allow her Gibraltar-born parent to transfer British citizenship to her. ILGA Europe, in a press release, notes Bulgarian authorities denied a request for the child to become a Bulgarian citizen because of the argument that, quote, a child cannot have two mothers, and refused to issue a birth certificate in which the parents are two persons of the same sex. ILGA Europe notes the ruling asserts that the Bulgarian authorities are obliged to issue an identity card or a passport to, quote, the child, and all other EU member states are obliged to recognize it. Whew, this is one of those kind of, it's a good end here, but that is when we think about the kind of importance of having all these kind of collective states. So like the EU here kind of pushing forward in an important way. Yeah.
Supporting that mission is universal, and it's something that we're going to have to continue to support. Something that's going to be done through communities and societies and organizations with a contingency plan that's, consistent. Without consistency in anything that you're trying to change, there will be no changes.
Yeah. What she said.
So I think it's important to note that they got citizenship somewhere. I was wondering, like, how confusing that was for those parents and how stressful after, you're supposed to be celebrating having a child and being a family unit finally, and then to have to go through all of that red tape and nonsense. That's crazy.
I mean, it's in our recent past that I have friends who have adopted children that had to go through the process of having one person adopt and then having the other person, then adopt them later on. And it's not in Bulgaria; it was here in the United States, and
in Florida, probably.
And we have to remember how how close we are to that as we read these stories to realize we're just one step away from that, just in our recent past. So, and powerful story.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
So that's today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates. Share this news with your friends and family.
Post this broadcast in the many groups you are a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your family and friends.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support, though.
If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, Tony Lima, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Lexi Goza, Jeff Oliverio, LaTonya Hopson, and Dr. Julio Capo Jr., we will see you daily at 8 p.m. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Lara are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire
The annual The 41 list includes a familiar South Florida face.
Honor 41 has announced the 6th edition of the 41 list, which celebrates 41 LGBTQ Latinx role models.
This year's 41 list includes a diverse group of distinguished professors, journalists, community leaders, actors, elected officials, activists, nonprofit leaders, artists, students, entrepreneurs, and more.
Alberto B. Menenzo, founder of Honor 41 and producer of the 41 list, said, quote, Honor 41 promotes awareness and positive images of the Latinx LGBTQ community. Celebrating this year's honorees and sharing their stories is an incredible personal honor, quote.
And here's the big moment. One honoree stands out to us here.
Drum
and
roll,
that's
please.
That's our very own Tony Lima.
Yay! Confetti!
The CEO, I'm talking, CEO of SunServe and the anchor here at the Happening Out television network, who said, and I quote, representation matters, and I hope my story as an openly gay Latinx advocate with a strong passion for helping my communities and evening the playing field for us all can inspire the next generation of advocates to take us even further than my generation has. Nicely done, Tony.
That's a good quote.
It was beautiful.
Congratulations, Tony.
Congratulations.
It's well deserved,
Well
and you
deserved.
have given a lot to our community. So
Really.
we're,
It's
I think
about
it was
time
very,
to get recognized like that.
great
Thank
to see
you.
this.
I
Richly
appreciate
deserved.
that very much. I'm very honored because I've been very aware of this list pretty much since its inception. And Alberto Mendoza, the guy that runs Honor 41, is an amazing activist within his own right and takes the time year after year to interview more than 41 people to get to those 41, of course, but he captures everyone's unique coming out story and really shows the multifacets living and leading in the Latinx community who are also LGBTQ or queer. So I'm really excited. Thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Lara are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus